My friends at EasyCater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
I'm Eliza. Today's leadership quote comes from John F. Kennedy. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become irreplaceable, game-changing leader assistants.
Hey assistants, it's episode 29. And now a word from our sponsor.
Hey leader assistants. If you manage business travel at your company, check out Lola.com's corporate travel platform. Lola.com is the easiest way to book, manage, and report on corporate travel. Visit Lola.com/podcast to schedule a free demo and receive a free $50 Amazon gift card. Terms apply. Again, that's Lola.com/podcast. In today's episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Eliza Bladon, who is Lola.com's executive assistant. She manages the co-founder and CTO's calendar and travel, gets new hires up and running, assists in planning company meetings and events, and more. She also runs a Slack group focused on EAs and office managers called SmarterEA. You can check out today's show notes at leaderassistant.com/29. Also, don't forget to join our Facebook community at facebook.leaderassistant.com. And lastly, sign up for my email list at leaderassistant.com/sign-up. Let's get right to it. Hey, Leader Assistants. Thanks for tuning in. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm excited to be speaking with Eliza Bladon from Lola.com. Eliza is executive assistant to their co-founder and CTO. Hi, Eliza.
Hey.
Let's talk a little bit about your very first job and maybe what skills and traits you maybe learned and acquired from that job that you still use today.
Sure. So my very first job, I was actually a babysitter, which is funny because if you think about childcare, I'm not saying executives are like children in any way, but there's this kind of planning that goes into that and making sure everyone is taken care of. That was my very, very first job. Right out of college, I actually worked corporate retail, which is this really high stress, fast-paced environment. And I think learning how to move quickly, but making smart decisions at the same time were two of the skills that I learned during those jobs that really helped me become a successful EA.
Awesome. Yeah, babysitting is kind of like being an assistant, but yeah. We won't go too hard down that trail.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite breakfast cereal and why is it your favorite?
So I'm actually not a big cereal person, but if I had to choose one, I mean, I love sugar, so it would probably be Lucky Charms.
Nice. I'm a huge cereal person, so, it's kind of offensive that you're not a cereal person, but that's okay.
What's your favorite breakfast cereal?
I would say Crispix is my favorite. It's not really a sugar one, but I think it's
a classic.
It's like, classic, perfect cereal. As far as sugar cereal, though, I'd probably say Golden Grams.
Nice.
Tell us about kind of your career path from that corporate retail, babysitting, corporate retail, and then how you became an EA and why and how that all unfolded.
Sure. So it was pretty serendipitous, for lack of a better term. I went to college for fashion. So I thought I always wanted to be in retail. It was like my dream job. I landed it when I got out of college, and I realized it just really wasn't for me. It was a lot more accounting based than I was used to, a lot of math involved, which was not my strong suit. So I worked at TJX for a while, which was really fun. I learned a lot. And then I got into the startup world. I went to Wayfair. I wanted to try something totally different. And I really enjoyed that job. And then I thought that I wanted to do marketing. So then I tried something else completely different. And at the end of the day, I was talking to a friend and she was like, you know what? I'm thinking about like your skill set and what you're good at. And she was like, you should think about becoming an executive assistant. You love calendars, you love to-do lists. And so I was introduced to my current boss, Paul, through a friend, and we met and we hit it off. And that's kind of how I became an executive assistant.
So as EAs, we deal with a lot of change, and it sounds like you had a lot of change just even in your career path. So how did you kind of embrace that, and did it kind of push you and put you outside of your comfort zone?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in change. In previous roles that I've had, I always tried to do projects that were outside my comfort zone. I think embracing change is the best way to learn about yourself and learn about what you like in your career. Even as an executive assistant today, I'm sure you know this too, our jobs are just so different day to day. And so I think the more that you can switch it up and be okay with it, I think the better that you're gonna do at your job. I didn't have that straight line career path that I thought I was going to have, and it turned out to be one of the best things that happened to me.
So do you have any crazy stories from your times as an EA?
Yeah, I think so we do a lot of party planning here at the company I work for, Lola.com. And we put on these crazy events. And I also help my boss plan some of his summer parties. And so I think the craziest story I've ever had is I had to find a llama for an animal themed party in less than 48 hours. And I did. So that is one of my favorite stories. I think being an EA is so interesting because you're doing so many different tasks throughout the day. It could be anything from making sure that everyone's organized for an offsite, and then all of a sudden you find yourself online trying to find the nearest petting zoo. So I think that was one of the craziest things I've done since I've had this role.
Nice. I hope you have pictures and videos to kind of remember
I think
it.
there's a few floating around. Yeah.
So what was the biggest mistake you made as an assistant, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I book a lot of travel. It's a big part of my job. I'm spoiled in the sense that I now use a tool that helps us book that travel, Lola.com. But before I was using that, I booked a flight for my boss and I forgot to pick a seat assignment, and it was a long flight. And he ended up like in the very back row in the middle seat that like didn't recline. I'd say that one was pretty bad. Just because, obviously it wasn't my fault at the end of the day, but like EAs are supposed to be on top of it and double checking things and all that. So that was a pretty big one. But my whole thought process about being an EA is as long as you're learning from mistakes and you share with others, that's the best outcome.
Yeah, that would be tough. That would be tough to face your executive after that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're on the other end of that flight, picking them up or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of travel, if you had a day where you could go and do anything in the world with unlimited resources, what would you do and where would you go?
I'm a big beach person. Like I love the water. I would probably rent some house on the ocean somewhere, maybe Hawaii or in the Caribbean, and just relax for the day. I think that would be like my ultimate day. Just no agenda, like the exact opposite of what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Nice. You said you had a friend that was like, hey, you have the skill set to be an EA. What would you tell someone who's considering becoming an assistant?
I would say, so one of the things that I did that really helped is I built my network of executive assistants. I went into this role not really knowing what to fully expect, and this job can be so different based on who you are actually assisting. So build your network, go grab coffee with people who are already doing the job just to learn more about what it is that they actually do on a day-to-day basis.
What's maybe a tip you have for networking with other assistants?
Well, I would say LinkedIn is a great tool just to see if there are other executive assistants just in your area working for other local companies. I also have a Slack group that I started, SmarterEA.com, which has a bunch of executives across the country. If you just want to talk to someone even online, it doesn't have to be in person.
How did you end up coming up with that idea to start that group?
Yeah, so I was chatting with my boss and we were talking about how EAs have to move so quickly, and there's a bunch of great resources that are already out there and established, but something that I personally couldn't find was a way to communicate with other executive assistants quickly. And so we came up with this SmarterEA idea and just started a community Slack group. And it's been pretty exciting to just watch it unfold and watch more members join, and people have built relationships and they get quick answers to questions. So that's kind of how it all got started about a year ago.
Awesome. So let's talk about the executives for a second. What's maybe one tip that you would give executives to help them get more out of their assistant?
I would say communication is really key. One thing that I found really helpful is my executive took the time to set up weekly meetings with me when I first started, and we still have them now, just to communicate and talk about, what's going on in his schedule. A lot of communication is done over email these days and Slack messaging and you name it, but face-to-face communication sometimes is the best way to get quick answers to questions. So I'd say one tip to give executives is make sure that you have your assistant feel comfortable coming to you for things, and maybe setting up those weekly meetings is a great way to start that.
Love it. I'm a big fan of the weekly one-on-one check-in.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk a little bit about what you're passionate about, travel, and what you enjoy, booking travel, and then that's also what your company is all about, Lola.com's corporate travel booking software. So what are some of the biggest issues that you've had or that you've seen other EAs have when it comes to booking travel?
I'd say unpredictability. I think that's something, talking about change and comfort zones, like a lot of really successful EAs are very good at predicting, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, what schedules are going to look like, what things are going to look like. I haven't figured out how to predict the weather a week out. So unpredictability is a big one. And then expense management can be just such a pain. So I'd say those are the two biggest issues that I think EAs have when it comes to booking travel.
So what's kind of your number one travel booking tip?
I would say just always have a backup plan, especially if you're booking travel on behalf of someone else. If there's an important meeting, just know that there's a slight chance that you might need to get a refundable ticket on another flight that's a little bit later. Or if there's a train option available, maybe you should snag one of those. I'd say having a backup plan is really great. And then using some type of tool to manage your travel. So I'm, again, spoiled. I get to use Lola.com. It's this amazing tool that, I have a 24/7 travel team that if anything goes wrong, they're there and they're guiding me through how to fix things. I'd say that's a big one.
So when that kind of unexpected happens, what's the first thing you do, particularly with this tool, that you kind of do to take care of when your flights are delayed or canceled or diverted, when there's a big storm coming in? How do you utilize the Lola.com platform to kind of handle those last minute emergencies?
Yeah, so speed is everything in those scenarios. Our travel team, our customer service team is already on top of that. So they know before I do if a flight is delayed, canceled, you name it, and they'll usually come to me with some different options to fix it. So whether it's maybe we should book a rental car to get someone back, or there's another flight that leaves in an hour that has seats left, do you want me to book that? So for me, I don't really have to do much because they're already working on it. That comes as part of the service. So that's how Lola works. Before Lola, I was just moving quickly. Like if I knew that a flight was canceled or delayed, I was booking a car as quickly as possible if it was within driving distance, or booking the next possible flight out. Speed is everything in those scenarios because you have all these other travelers that are thinking the exact same way and trying to get home or trying to get to their meeting.
Yeah, I had a really rough situation the other day where my executive was stuck in LGA when LGA was basically shutting down because of a thunderstorm.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
He got stuck in there for like 8 hours. And so I basically was on the phone with airlines, hotels, travel agent, just kind of booking backup flights, canceling, booking a different backup flight, just as they kept pushing his flight back and back and back. So that was kind of one of those moments where I was like, all right, this doesn't happen. Like my executive doesn't travel a ton right now. But as he starts to travel more and the odds of these types of things happening increase, I started thinking, all right, I've got to probably have a little bit more help on this, because even though I'm quick, I like to think I'm quick, and resourceful, it's probably better to have a team supporting me on this.
Yeah. I mean, I used to think I was really good at being speedy and like knowing all the options. And then, I started using Lola, and we have these amazing travel assistants, and they're just geniuses. Like, they're 5 steps ahead of me. So yeah, sometimes it's good to have someone in your corner. You should think about using Lola.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you organize your executives' travel itineraries?
So Google Calendar is a huge tool for me. Like, I live in Google Calendar. My husband always makes fun of me because I'll be on it on my phone. It's on my computer. So I'll usually put all the travel details into Google Calendar invites. But Lola also has a tool called Trips. And so you can open up a Trips page, and it just organizes the flight, the hotel, the rental car in the right order, and you can download it and you can share it. So that's another tool that I also use.
Nice. How do you format kind of in the Google, because I do the same with Google Calendar where I have everything in the description of the events. And so I like to try to do it very minimal, like the most important things like the flight number and the departure time, but not all the other extra details. And then I like to space it out so that you can kind of scroll on your phone and quickly get to what you need. Do you have any tips on kind of how you format it in Google Calendar?
Yeah, so I have a similar mentality. I keep it, just the details that they really need. So airport, location number, and sometimes ticket number. There are rare instances where you do actually need that. Say like your flight does get canceled and you want to make sure that that money gets refunded back into your account. The other thing that I like about Google Calendar is you can set different time zones. So when your boss is traveling, I don't know, from the West Coast to the East Coast or vice versa, you can go through and make sure that everything reflects correctly on their calendar as well.
Great. So what's your favorite airline to work with?
JetBlue. I love JetBlue. I love traveling JetBlue. Their customer service is great. My executive is a Mosaic member because he travels so frequently. So they also have a dedicated helpline. I've never had issues. I think being an assistant can be hard when you have to call airlines sometimes so my boss is a man, I'm a woman, and I clearly don't have a man's voice. So sometimes, I hit walls and people won't let me update things, or they won't let me change his travel plans. And JetBlue, I've never had an issue like that. They're just always so helpful.
Where are you guys based out of again?
We're out of Boston.
Okay. So it's are they hubbed in Boston or?
I don't believe so, but they have quite a few flights that go out.
Okay. Yeah, I really enjoy working with Southwest, and I think that's half because their St. Louis is a pretty big hub for Southwest, and so there's a lot more options a lot of the times. But then I also just love that I can change a flight at the last minute or book a new flight at the last minute with credit, and there's never any change fees or anything. So I know there's often times where I will book 2 or 3 backup flights because I know that I can either get a refund or credit it to a future flight, and so I'm not losing money. And so taking that financial kind of risk out of it in those moments is very empowering when you're trying to figure things out in the last minute.
Yeah, for sure. Southwest is a great airline.
So what about hotel? What's your favorite hotel chain?
So for hotels, I'd say, so my executive bounces around quite a bit, usually stays in more boutique hotels, but I really like Kimpton's. I think those are great hotels. They always have really cool decor, great customer service. And then I recently stayed at an Embassy Suites, which is owned by Hilton. And those are great hotels because they do free happy hour, which if you're a business traveler and if you've had a long day, there's nothing like free cocktails from 4 to 6. So I'd also say Hilton is a pretty good one.
Nice. So how do you kind of go about booking hotels and finding the best hotel rates and last minute hotels? And is that all through Lola.com, or is it kind of partnered with somebody else?
So everything that I do is through Lola. So flights, cars, hotels. And the really neat thing about Lola is, especially for business travel, what it does is it'll flag hotels that other people in your company recommend or where they've stayed before. So if I'm planning, a trip out to St. Louis for my boss, and I'm I don't know anything about St. Louis, I pull up the hotels, I'm in charge of booking one. I might see that, our head of BD has actually stayed out there a previous month and she recommended a hotel. So that's another really great feature that can give you a little more confidence behind booking.
And then when you book, I'm just curious how, like my situation the other night where my executive's in New York and it's looking like his flight's probably going to get canceled. So I'm starting to look at hotels, but everybody else and their dog are looking for hotels too.
Yeah.
And what I found was when I spoke, I found online a few options, but then I spoke to the travel agent. Finally, after an hour and a half, he found a hotel, but it was, non-refundable because it was after 6:00 that day. And he basically was like, hey, I got this hotel. We worked an hour and a half to find it. Do you want it? It's 500 and something bucks and it's close to the airport. And they're holding the room for me for a second. And I just found out that my executive was about to supposedly board his flight. And so I was in this 10-minute window where I was like, okay, he could be getting on the plane and actually leaving, but he also could not. It could still get pushed back or canceled, and then he'd be stuck without a room. So I was like, do I risk the $500, $600, or do I risk not having a room? And so I had to kind of make that decision on the fly, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to spend the $600. I'll figure it out if he gets stuck. And so I said no to the travel agent, which he wasn't super happy about. But then he ended up getting on his flight and leaving. So I was like, oh, good. I saved.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. That's the worst feeling when you're sitting there and you're like, I really hope that I just made the right decision.
Yeah. So I got lucky on that one. But how would you how does Lola.com software kind of help you navigate that? Obviously, you said there's a travel team that would kind of be ahead of the game. But does it help with last minute cancellation fees or, things like that?
So one of the things that's really great about Lola is you can see right away when you're doing a search for a hotel if it's refundable or not. So as opposed to a lot of other sites, you can literally pull it up and compare 6 different hotels at once, and you can sort it by refundable or non-refundable rate. So that's a big feature that I really like. So right away, I know what's not refundable and I know what is refundable. And in that case, hopefully you'd be able to have more results show up that would be refundable rates. In the case where there isn't anything available, I do think that our travel service team has an amount of swagger over the phone. They're really great with people and they'll do their best to try and get you the best possible outcome. So I would say that just having more people on your side, helping you book travel for your executive at the end of the day is going to help you.
And I heard you have a interesting nickname for that team.
We do. So they're called the Wombats. It's kind of a funny story. So our now VP of product, she started in our service team and she always wanted to be on a team called the Wombats. I don't quite know why, but she kept trying to sell it to our head of service. She was like, we should call ourselves the Wombats. And she was like, I don't really understand why. I don't think so. And then we found out that a group of wombats is called a wisdom. And ever since then, we just love that term. So we call our travel agents the Wombats. They have a mascot. His name is Sir Wales. He's a little stuffed animal wombat that has his own Instagram page. So they're a lot of fun. I actually sit right next to them where I work now, which is also, again, I'm very spoiled. If I have any travel issues, I can just turn around and talk to them live. So,
wow, love it. We'll be sure to share the Instagram page on the show notes.
Yeah, for sure.
So, do you have any tips for EAs who have to book flights for a group of 50 or more team members?
Yeah, first, bless you, because that is a lot. The first thing that I think is important is just getting everyone's information and making sure that it's accurate. So if you're not using a travel tool like Lola, creating a Google spreadsheet and just having everyone share and double check all of their information. There's so many times when people have to book flights and, someone's birthday might be incorrect or their known traveler number is 1 digit off. Mm-hmm. So just double checking all the details is a really big thing and keeping organized. But I also just really recommend getting some type of tool to book your travel and manage your expenses, because managing those 50 travelers is probably going to be a headache when they get back. I remember one of my first jobs, my job was to collect all these receipts from all these buyers, and it would be 3 months later and they'd be like, oh yeah, I went on this one business trip and I forgot to expense this. So it's like this never ending manual journey. So I'd say get a tool, try and work with your executive team or your finance team to get in your corner and find some type of travel tool to use. Hopefully it's Lola. And then if that's not an option, just try and be as organized as possible and have people triple check all of their information.
Let's talk about kind of if somebody wanted to check out Lola.com, is this something that, let's say you're in a small company and you're the only EA and you're the only one that books travel, is it kind of a simple onboarding process for one solo EA in a small company? And then on the flip side, if you're in a company of 5,000 people and you have 1,000 people that travel and you're kind of trying to manage all that, tell us a little bit about kind of how you would onboard in those situations.
Sure. So that's honestly one of my favorite features too, is the onboarding process is really easy. When you get set up as an admin, one of the first steps is you just send invites to the company, and in a matter of clicks, they fill out their personal information, their travel information, and then it's done. Like they're in the system. So it's a pretty quick process. Whereas I know other travel tools can be, a month-long setup process, and you have to wait for all this information. We really put the tool in the hands of the traveler. So while the admin is in charge of it, it's up to the traveler to put in all of their information. The admin can do it if he or she wants to, but there's this great option to just send an email and have everyone set up their own profile. And again, like a matter of minutes.
And as far as like pricing, it breaks down to where if you're just one user, your company could sign up for it and roll with it, right?
Yeah. So we have different pricing structures based on the size of your company.
Okay. Awesome. What about, so you've been talking up this tool to help you do your work better. What are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and what we as assistants can and should do to kind of prepare for the future of work?
I would say when it comes to AI, embrace it. I know I've talked to a few other assistants, and sometimes that topic can make them nervous. Like, oh, is my job going to get replaced by Alexa? Oh gosh, we have an Alexa in this conference room and I just set her off.
Perfect. I always wanted Alexa to be on the podcast.
That was hilarious. Okay, well, she might be. Okay, she's off. So I would say embrace it. I actually think AI can make our job so much easier. And at the end of the day, there are these human touches that I think we're always going to need. I think that this role comes with a lot of empathy and a lot of understanding. And I think we're a long ways off from AI becoming that way. So embrace it. Use tools that make your job easier.
Yeah, perfect. So if you could snap your fingers and instantly give all assistants more of something, what would it be?
Their own assistants. No, I would say time. Like, I wish I had 1 extra hour in the day just to like clear out my inbox or reorganize all the thoughts in my head. I wish that like executive assistants could just have 1 extra hour every day.
What makes an assistant a leader?
Not being afraid to jump in. I think assistants really, when they get into roles, can feel very isolated. It's a job where, for me, for example, I really work with one executive. And so that could mean that, I have my head down, I'm at my computer all day, and when he's on the road, maybe I'm just emailing with him. It could be a really lonely job. I think one of the ways that I found success is just get involved in different areas of the company. You know so much more than you think that you do as an assistant. Like, you're really tuned in to so many different areas. And so offer to help out doing different projects that are, again, outside of your comfort zone, and embrace change. Recently, I started doing our company onboarding here. So I work with a lot of our new hires and making sure that they feel welcome and lead them through a bunch of different trainings. And that was something that I think has helped me take on more of a leadership role in my job.
So what's like a resource that you've really learned a lot from that you recommend other assistants check out?
So there's a bunch of them out there. For me, I really use SmarterEA. It's a tool that's a Slack group. I use Slack at work. It's this great communication tool. It's on my phone when I'm on the go. It's on my computer, where I just have this community of assistants where I can ask them questions. Like, if I have to find catering tomorrow for a group of 20 and, there's only a couple options out there. I can throw that question out to the Boston Slack channel and ask, hey, who's used like QuickTime catering that was actually really good? Any suggestions? Or, I might be having a bad week, or if I want to talk about career advice, I've been able to talk to a few people individually that I've met through the channel. So I'd say building out your network through SmarterEA is a great way. And there's, depending on the area that you live in, there are also a bunch of Facebook groups and things out there for people to join.
Nice. Awesome, Eliza. Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your day and chatting about corporate travel and what you're passionate about and cereal, even though you're not a big cereal fan. I really appreciate you and the work you're doing. So where can we find you in Lola.com, and how can we support what you all are up to?
Sure. So Lola.com, easy way to find us. Our name is our website. So there are a lot of Lolas out there, but we are Lola.com. So you can check us out there. And then if you do want to check out SmarterEA, just go to SmarterEA.com. It's a community for office managers and executive assistants to get to know each other a little bit better.
Perfect. Well, even though those are pretty simple URLs, we'll still put them in the show notes. And
amazing.
Yeah. Thanks again, and really appreciate your wisdom and sharing your tips and tricks. And we will hopefully talk soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I'll probably go book some travel in my EA job right now.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks again to Eliza and Lola.com for an amazing episode with lots of great booking, travel, corporate expense tips. You can check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/29. And don't forget to check out the demo of Lola.com and grab a $50 Amazon gift card, Lola.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate you. Keep leading well.
Help my dad out and leave a review on iTunes. GoBulls.com